Juanita. Alvin showed up now and again. He was always there. Always liked it. They always sat right over there, both of them, at the same table all the time. And it was my pleasure to watch, because I watch when I teach and watch faces and watch her interest in the Word of God. And so the family asked if I would give it says a homily. Got not a clue what a homily is. I'm used to Sunday school lessons. And I said, Alvin, we got a problem going here because I study and my head shuts off at about 40 minutes. And he said we'd lock the doors and you'd be a captive audience, but when it got time to stop, he'd raise his hand and I'd stop. So if I get going too long, you asked me to talk from John 14. Keisha read it. And like all Bible stuff, everything has verses around it. And the verses around it make what the verses we're looking at mean more. It gives us a better idea of what Jesus is trying to say. Because what he says here is don't let your heart be troubled. You believe in God, believe in me. In my Father's house are many dwelling places. If it wasn't so, I would have told you. I go to prepare a place for you, and if I go, I will come again and receive you unto myself, that where I am, you may be also. The background of this is, Jesus is saying to them, don't let your heart be troubled, and for a reason. I miss my blackboard. I need my blackboard. Because their heart was troubled. The context was Judas had just walked out on Jesus. The betrayal was at hand. Jesus had said to Peter, you will be denying me very soon. He had said to his disciples, I am leaving you. I'm going to be gone. And all of this stuck in the disciples' mind. And actually the thing that stuck in their mind was the fact that Jesus was going to be leaving them and they didn't know what to do. Because if you read ahead, Jesus says to them, I know you want to ask me about that. I know you want me to explain this. And it's almost as if all of the words that Jesus spoke in chapter 14, 15, and 16, those wonderful words, they didn't hear because they were focused on the fact that the Jesus that they loved without any reservation said, we're leaving, I'm leaving, I will be gone. Now, the interesting thing is, in the middle of this, I think we ourselves, and maybe not so much you here, but when some event happens to us, well, for example, you tell a 6-year-old that we're going to Disney World in 2 weeks, and that 6-year-old will not talk about anything else, will not remember anything else. Well, the only thing, are we going tomorrow? Are we going? That's the only thing that will be in their head, that event. But also other events take place in our lives that cause a number of things to be forgotten. And I think it's important for us today. I know that Juanita loved the Lord. I know she loved the Lord. And yet our hearts can be troubled on events that take place. Wondering about. And so Jesus here is bringing his words to bear on this common human thing of being troubled at events. Now the word trouble doesn't mean just, trouble. It means to be agitated inside, so that the event occupies one mind. It causes fear, it causes anxiety, it causes things that you don't have answer. It's kind of like a pot bubbling. That is the term trouble here. So Jesus is going to answer this idea of not allowing your heart to be troubled. I know that as Christians, the Bible says that we don't grieve as others who don't have what we grieve. I know that. Been there, done that. But we don't grieve as others that don't have hope. So Jesus is not saying here You know, put a smile on your face and just kind of go dancing down Life Street and everything will be okay, you know. No, he's admitting to the fact that, you know, grief takes place. He talks about sorrow. But that's different than letting your heart be troubled. So his answer to this is quite simple. I'll try to go quick. I've only got 7 pages here. But the very first thing that he does is that he begins to point his disciples. He directs their attention away from the event that is causing them to be agitated and points their attention to God. Because he says, in my Father's house are many mansions. And he points them to God. And he says, you know, I know you believe in God. I know you do. I know you do. And that belief in God, when you look in the Psalms and you look at what it means to trust God, the Psalm says things like this: the Lord is at my right hand. I shall not be moved. It says, my help comes from the Lord. It says, God is my salvation. It says, soul, why are you so upset? Trust, hope in God. The Psalms is absolutely full of directing our hearts to God when we're in days of trouble. And that is what Jesus is doing here. And if you are troubled here today, if you're all agitated about Juanita and where she is, I would direct your attention to God. I would say to you, look at God. Get into the Psalms. Begin to look at the Lord. Now, then he says here that the second thing for this remedy for trouble is, he says, I know you believe in God, but he says, believe in me now. And it's actually in the command form, so he's looking us in the eyeball, and he's saying, believe in me. Because he says, I am going to say some things here, very short, very quick, that you've not heard before, things that are going to sound kind of odd to you, kind of funny, things that you have not heard. I'm going to say them, but they're coming from me, and I want you to believe me, because what I am saying to you is the truth. And so then he starts here. The first thing he says is that the first picture he gives of his Father's house, in which there are many, it says rooms. I just enjoyed so much the talking of your mother-in-law, of her home, of what it looked like, of the way she was, the way she kept house, clean, you know, neat, the way she cooked, the way she liked her blackberry pies. You know, that was home. You know, home is a great place. It's a great spot to be at. Home. Here Jesus says, my Father's got a house. My Father's got a home. And in that home are lots of places available for you. And he puts this image into the eyes of his disciples, which is, I think, one that we need to have in our own heart as we think of our loved ones who have gone on to be with the Lord, that they're in the Father's house. Things are like the Father likes them. You know, in my house, you come to my house, if you've been to my house, you will see pictures on the wall. Every spare inch has pictures on the wall. And they are stacked 2 and 3 high to the ceiling. And I have a high ceiling. That's the way we like it in our house. The Father's house is like the Father likes it. And Juanita is in the Father's house. And he is saying to me, the Father's house. I want you to get that in your heart. The Father's house is where I go. And then he says, I'm going there to prepare a place for you. One of the great things about the Father's house is that there's a reservation made for each one. In the Father's house, there's not a waiting room where you sign a list. You know, when you go to the doctor, and you walk in there and you sign a list, and you go and sit down until the doctor's available. It could be any time from whenever your appointment was up until after your appointment. You all know this. And you sit down in the Father's house. It is not like that. In the Father's house, you don't take a number. And, I don't know, St. Peter or whatever. Yeah, he says, well, we'll call your number. Now there's a big sign up there. And when number 6,528,000,000 to what it comes up, you know, that when you look at yours, you've got number 4. You know, I'm going to be sitting here. That is not how it is in the Father's house. Jesus says, and he does it this way. Look at him. He is standing in front of his disciples. And he says, I go to prepare a place for you. And his eyes pass from person to person, because the you is in a plural sense, not just a one. And he's looking at each one of them. And he's saying, I am going to prepare a place for you. There's a reservation for each one of us in the Father's house. And then he says something else. Hands not up yet. Good, good. He says, if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come back. Now, this coming back thing, you know, if you've read your Bible, if you've been around church, there is the same thing of the second coming of the Lord that the Bible talks about, Jesus' return on earth. I think, you know, that's part of it, but I also believe that the coming of the Lord is also when each one of us, when it's our moment to die, the Lord comes for us in a way. It is his coming to me personally. Now, maybe personally, I believe in angels. I think the Bible gives us enough knowledge in there, some illustration to say that angels are the ones that actually come and escort a saint into the presence of God. If you wish to talk about it afterward, you know, get a number. But it is my understanding in Scripture that that is what happens when a saint dies. Angels come. Because the next phrase gives us another clue about this. Because he says, I will come back and take you to be with me. And take you to be with me that you may be where I am. In the King James says, I will receive you unto myself. That's a really cool phrase. I will receive you unto myself. That has the idea of royalty. Somebody sitting on a throne. And the door opens. And Gabriel or whoever says, Juanita is here. And Jesus says, bring her in. And Juanita walks into the room. And Jesus receives her as a king or a queen would receive a petitioner. That's what this is. It has the idea of and remember this, a bridegroom standing up front in church and watching his bride walk down the aisle. Dad, to receive his bride. That is what this is a picture of. And also it's a picture, the word to receive you unto myself. The unto myself here is the same word that Jesus, or that is used of Jesus in John 1:1, where it says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God. When he says to receive you unto myself, they're exactly the same word, so that the relationship, what he's talking about here, the relationship that God the Father and God the Son had with each other, he is saying here, this is the relationship that I will have with you. I will receive you unto myself, and you will be with me. So whatever is going on, Juanita is with